On many occasions, I receive multiple emails about my painting process for Gunpla. That's the term people use. It's like short for Gundam and plastic. Gunpla. Honestly, between me and you, I hate that term. It doesn't seem as cool as Gundam. But what are you gonna do? It's the lay of the land, and I'm just a visitor. A butt munch, if you will. Join me on this fantastic journey where I attempt to be Bob It's a Gunpla Ross. I will now take you through the processes of painting with me. By the way, I have only, as of this video, painted 4 model kits. I am not an aficionado in any way on the rules of painting Gunpla. I'm still learning myself. I have no clue what I'm doing, and oftentimes I make many mistakes. But sometimes the mistakes look cool. My work area is my kitchen table. The benefits of living alone is that you can put all of your stuff on your kitchen table and no woman comes out and goes, "Oh, it's a fucking mess." There's a multitude of primers you can use. I have a couple. Usually for flat surfaces, flat clear coats, you're supposed to use, I believe, 1000 grit primer. Also, there are multitudes of colors I'm using. I was originally only sticking with Mr. Hobby paints, but I've recently gotten into Alcalad too for metal colors and so on and so forth. It's still a learning process as to what I like and what I enjoy using and what gets the best results. Shake that bottle. Shake it. This is also Spastics. I'll be using some of their paints. Their mirror chrome is pretty good. Actually, the best mirror chrome I've ever seen is sold in Korea. I can't even pronounce it. I think it's like Kong, and I can't get my hands on this shit. And since I don't have any South Korean friends, there's no way in hell I'm getting any. So for the time being, it's Spastics all the way for my metallic chrome paints. My tools of trade. Originally, I started out with a cheap zero gravity airbrush. It came with the kit that I got off Amazon for like 80 bucks, so it's not a bad sort of deal. You get 3 airbrushes and a compressor. Little did I know that if you really want to do airbrushing without it going to craps, you might want to get a tank. But once again, if you're just starting, stick to the cheap side. You don't know. You may hate it. You may like it. Who knows? Overall, I can say the Master airbrush, it's dirt cheap. It's not bad. It's functional. It's the best way I could put it. I came across many issues that were just numerous. Number one, the fact that like paint would sometimes leak down the whole fucking airbrush. It just made no sense. Why is this happening? Why? So every time I switch paints, I'd have to clean my airbrush thoroughly and completely every time. And it's fairly time consuming. Most people don't want to bother with that noise. I, on the other hand, didn't mind because I found it therapeutic. The funny thing about depression, anything that distracts you from it can help. But it doesn't take away the fact that you want to hang yourself. No, this isn't a cry for help. It's just the truth for the situation.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's clinical depression.
As I stated before, this is the first compressor I started with. While working on this kit, I actually updated my compressor to one that had a tank. So you might notice, you might not, who knows. The airbrush I am currently using that is now my daily driver, it's the only one I touch out of the 4 I have, is the Iwata Highline C. This is actually the $250 version. It was gifted to me by TC Games, and I have to say thank God for him, because the old airbrush was a nightmare in comparison. This thing is like a luxury car, and the 0-point airbrush was like a Ford Fiesta. All right, think of it as just like a really shitty 80s car, like a Honda Civic, and the Iwata Highline C is like a Ferrari. It's just totally different. And I know most people sit there and tell you, oh, well, it's not the airbrush, it's the artist. Well, yeah, you're right. But here's something from someone who plays guitar. Any good guitar player can make a shitty guitar sound good, but it doesn't make playing the damn thing not a nightmare. That's the best way to put it. This makes airbrushing so much easier, and it should for the price, in all honesty. I also attached some quick release valves. I don't know if you'll need that for the time being, since I no longer switch between airbrushes. But let's move on to painting, because this is taking too much time. I am painting a Master Grade Gundam RX-782 Origins version. They say this is one of the most posable Gundams ever made. I believe it's in 2015 it was made or whatever. As you can see, it's a very mute-looking thing. I'm not one for unpainted Gunpla. I have no problem if people like putting them together and not painting them, but for me, like when I'm looking at them, they look honestly like toys just put together. without any sort of work put into them. And my goal is to make them stand out, make them like a piece of art, you know, like something you would not be ashamed to have in your office or in a glass display case, something like that. I'm currently using Mr. Hobby's Primer 1000, Mr. Surfacer. That's what I'll use throughout this whole thing. Mr. Surfacer 1000, good for matte finishes from what I recall. Or is it 500? Oh well, memory doesn't serve me. But if you're doing like gloss coats for your paint job, like if you want a really high gloss, it's best to use like 1500, I'm told. So that's something to keep in mind. Might also be good to use for metallic parts, like 1500 black for those. Don't forget to get a respirator. The paints I'm currently using are toxic. Do not huff these paints. They kill brain cells. Please, please, please make sure you pay attention to that. I don't want anybody's parents coming to me or like a wife or girlfriend. My boyfriend started painting Gunpla because of your videos and now he's retarded because he was sniffing the paint without a respirator, you selfish jackass. Here is an alligator clip. Invest in some. You're gonna need them, especially if you're painting. They make the painting process much easier, the drying time, separating pieces. Q-tips. I use the angled ones. Now, here's a funny thing. If you were to buy these angled Q-tips from Mr. Hobby or some other hobby shop that sells specialized Q-tips just like these, you'd be paying like $10 to $15 for 50. Fuck that. Go to Amazon, buy them in bulk. You can get 3 packs of 175 for $8. Don't always buy the name brand stuff because sometimes, you know, they just want to rip you off because of the hobby. Now let's get into painting. Getting out that primer. The beauty of this primer is the grain is so fine, they say like it's real easy to mix with thinner. And in some cases, it's not needed. I don't recommend trying to spray without thinner, by the way. And usually the rule of thumb is a 50-50 ratio. You're in a good spot there. Some use 60-40, so on and so forth. All up to you. As I said before, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm literally doing this for fun. You know, like I don't see myself being a professional or taking it too seriously. Well, I mean too seriously for me. I'm fairly obsessive with things. You might have noticed. I think my Fallout videos is proof of that. Next up, spraying. Right here is my tiny spray booth. You can get one of these off of Amazon, eBay. Depending on which one you grab is what determines the price. One without like the LED lights is something like $80. And one with the lights is $90. I figured I'll take the lights. 10 extra bucks and I can spray at night. I'll take it. Overall, I'd say it's okay. You know, it's not hyper amazing, but it isn't bad. It gives you the luxury of actually being inside the house. And in New York, we all know how cold the winters get. So it's a must have, unless like you got the money for a really nice metal spray booth that's huge and whatnot with a serious fan. And that day is yet to come for me. Don't you dare touch that kitty. And we're just primering. Fucking cat. Get out of here. Get out of here. He's like laying on my mat. My mouse pad. Dude, no way. This mouse pad is LED. No. And now we're just primering. To do it in that sort of Bob Ross way. I don't recall how Bob Ross talks. How the hell's that guy talk? All I know are like little catchphrases like happy little mistakes. Something you never hear a woman saying about me. He was my happy little mistake. Maybe my mother. Oh well, whatever. As you can see, it just goes on as smooth as butter. I love Mr. Hobby's primer. Mr. Color, whatever they call it. It's just like whoosh, right on there. I wish everything else went on as simple as this primer. Like the clear coat, for God's sakes. If only gloss clear coat was this seamless. Oh well, one can dream, am I right? I wonder if I should put on like some sort of music or something and give it that professional vibe. As you can see here, the brush is always moving. You can do circular motions, you can do back and forth sweeping. Whatever you do not concentrate on one area because you'll get overspray and runs, and that's the last thing you want. It's fairly simple. It's actually very relaxing, very easy. The time just flies when you are airbrushing and it's going together well. I cannot tell you how many times I've done this and just magically lost track of 8 hours. It's just that good. You know, sometimes I get real mad, and I used to beat up the punching bag. Now I like just put on the respirator and paint, and I'm just one with the universe and all the other crap that Bob Ross would say. But in all actuality, the dude wasn't lying. This stuff really just mellows you out, bro. You are in the zone. You're doing everything right. These are delicious moments in life. Oh, chrome. I lost a video where I was doing the black base coat. For this, I used the Spastics Ultimate Black Backer. Now, the funny thing about that is, unfortunately, about the video I can't show you, is it takes a couple coats to get right. It actually sprays really matte. But once you get down like 1 or 2 matte coats, you could just hammer on that black coat until it's all glossy looking and you're good to go. But you gotta let it dry for at least 2 hours. Some people recommend 2 days. I usually do like a day, if not longer, depending. So maybe plan ahead if you're impatient, if you're gonna do any sort of chrome work. Now we're moving on to the black. This is actually a glossy black. Glossy black is perfect for, once again, reflective metals as a base coat. But since I use Spastics Ultimate Black Backer, I no longer use this. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we're going to do some pre-shading. Pre-shading is where you take something like black, maybe a gray or brown, whatever you choose. Different shades and hues can give different effects, maybe more natural lighting. And we just outline the areas of the mobile suit itself, the parts. We just follow like the square, the lines, anything there, we follow it. And we just do it in with a black line. I like to go more subtle with my pre-shading personally because I do a mix. I do pre-shading and highlighting. The highlighting will come later. The pre-shading, if you're lazy or if you just like the way pre-shading looks, it's a fantastic way to just put on your one color and be on your way. It doesn't require anything more of you, whereas the highlighting requires a little bit more hand control and skill. So everybody starts off with pre-shading and then eventually moves to highlighting in most cases, or so I'm told. I know that I am no different when it comes to this. So now let's just watch some pre-shading. Maybe I'll put up some music from someone who contacted me and wanted me to, who offered me to use his music, and maybe not everything needs to be my own tunes. So I'll give him a little shout out. Oh, bloody buggery hell. beautiful song. It's like very impressive. As a musician, I sit here and I just think, wow, those guys are really good. One of the members, I believe the songwriter, his last name is Martin, if I can recall right, contacted me on Patreon and said if I ever wanted to use his music, hit him up, let him know. And I figured, why not expose more people to his tune? Granted, I used it on a video most of my subscribers won't watch, but I feel it's like a sort of hidden gem. Oh, I should be paying attention to what the hell I'm doing. The color I'm using currently is actually a darker version of the Gundam yellow. The funny thing about the Gundam color line is that for the most part, it gets most of the colors correct, but then it's still slightly off. So you're forced to start mixing your own colors. I highly recommend it. It's something you're going to do at some point if you start doing Gunpla models, because it's inevitable. It's an inevitability. It's like you get one Gunpla and you get another one, then another one. Then all of a sudden you start trying to learn how to become a better painter. It happened to me. You don't think it can happen to you? You screw around, before you know it, you're doing coke. It just happens. It's a domino effect. It's a gateway drug. The children need help. Oh, well, back to painting. In this area, I'm attempting to highlight some of the features of the neck of the Gundam with a lighter yellow. Highlighting requires, as I said earlier, a bit more control over your hands. You have to be like a surgeon sometimes, dude, especially when you're working such fine lines as these. The overall goal is to just make it a lighter shade in a certain area. I think I whiffed it here real bad, so this is not a good example, to be honest. It was quite depressing. Oh, great. The camera ran out of juice. Oh well, let's move on. We're going to highlight some of this red here. It's going to be real hard to tell because the transitional color that I did was so minute that it would be hard to pick up unless you're using some sort of form of light. Now you might say, why the hell would you do appreciate and then highlight? I don't know. For some reason I just had this desire to do so. Oddly enough. I wanted a real interesting transition. Instead of it being 2 shades, I wanted it to be 3 shades without having to go through the hassle of doing 3 different colors in the sense of dark red, slightly not so dark red, to just red, rather than just appreciating black, dark red, red. A similar effect, but it's the lazy road, if you will. Now, with painting, oftentimes there are going to be points where you have to mask off something. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And frankly, using tape is usually the best method. But there's an alternative, actually. I'm using this Humbrol masking rubber. The funny thing is, I came across it about a year or so ago when a friend of mine, I believe his tag name is Muslim, wanted to know if I was capable of painting a Boba Fett helmet for him. I told him I didn't really have the time, and I'd never done it before. It would require a great deal of research, but I did hunt down like a film source helmet for him. It wasn't painted though. But in that time, I learned a couple things about painting Boba Fett helmets, and this stuff is something I picked up on. And I now use it while painting Gunpla. It's one of the best and easiest ways to mask off areas without having to go through the hassle of cutting up tape and getting it just right and this whole rigmarole. This stuff is really useful, and I use it in conjunction with tape on many occasions. Trust me, this is the way to go. Now we move on to mixing the Gundam blue. I actually made a slightly darker version of this color to put on the Gunpla. At first, it didn't seem right to me, but after finishing the kit completely, it's really grown on me as a color. And remember that. Sometimes when putting these together and painting them, the color might seem off or it seems like your work isn't that good. At that point, take a step back, move away from it, and give yourself time to do something else or reflect. And upon returning, you might find that you actually enjoy what you've done, or the thought or the idea has sort of grown on you over time. I say let the mobile suit come together as you do it, you know, in the way of like just go with what you feel. And then when the product is finished, you get an overall look and appreciation for what you've done. I do feel that anyone who puts in the time and the effort will always have a good experience with painting Gunpla. At least that's what some Korean guy who gets paid to do the stuff told me. The painting principle here is the same as everything else that you've already seen me paint. Once you've done one piece, you've got the gist of them all. Always keep the brush moving. so on and so forth, painting layers, etc. As you can see here, I'm going with the pre-shade mode. You can kind of see the outlines of the black finally real clear. Now the thing is that I try to do is I try to paint over it, but not so much that it disappears. And sometimes I get in real close to try and clean up lines. I found that the mixture of paint I did for the blue was taking really slowly. So I'd have to do like a layer or so, put it up, let one dry, move on to the next piece. This gives you more of a chance to actually get it done right without it being overly painted, you know, with like orange peel, I believe, and runoff. I do make some mistakes here and there though on this piece because I was becoming frustrated with the hue of the blue that I had got at the time. But once I finished it, it really grew on me, as I said previously. So that's all that's going on here.
Sits by the stop sign. She say yeah, she say yeah. Broken hearts to the blame, and she'll never change. She's got such beautiful eyes. She's as brutal as a snake bite. 10, 11, 12. All bad girls, they go to hell.
You're listening to Washed Up Rocker Radio. That was one of my hot tunes that didn't really tickle Dave Grohl's fancy, so now I'm making YouTube videos. Now you know why I'm here. Sad, isn't it? Well, you might notice that I am painting the white panels of the Gundam. The leg, armor, head, etc. Here is what I found that I think is really, really cool, right? This is not going to really blow anybody's minds, but to people who paint Gunpla or is just starting out, here's something I learned that you'll probably like. I have found that using Mr. Color 35, which I believe is Mitsubishi gray, or it's this off-ish white, but it really looks gray to me. It's a very light gray. It is the perfect shade to use on Gundam parts. This is the darker color we're going to do right over Appreciate. And then we're going to move on to the Mr. Color number 1, Mr. Gundam Color number 1, which is the off-white for Gundams. The transition between the Mr. Color 35 Mitsubishi Gray to Gundam Color number 1 Mobile Suit White is fantastic. It is the perfect hue and shade for the transitioning of light in areas on curvature, etc. You know what I'm saying. Now, this is exciting to me because it only took me, what, 3 model kits to figure this out? No, 4. I figured it out while working on this one, actually. And I was so stoked because when you just use Mr. Color 1, which is just white, oh my God, it's such a pain in the ass to get that white hue correct. You have no idea. Maybe you do. But with Mr. Color or Gundam Color number 1 on top of this, beautiful. Simple, smooth, easygoing. It's no need to do multiple layers to get that right shade. It's just perfect, these two colors in conjunction together. So that's my tip to you. Next up, since we've already done, well, as you've seen, I've already painted the inner frame parts steel. I actually did steel Mr. Metal color from Mr. Color, and I did the lining, like the shading with the Alcalad steel. Ironically, they're supposed to be the same color, but one is actually much darker, which is the Alcalad. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking an aluminum Mr. Metal color, and I'm dry brushing in some highlights. I came across this stuff called C1 Metalizer. From what I understand, this is something that's like a metal powder that you can rub on top of any sort of metallic paint that you have used, and it gives it a more realistic shine or color to it, if you will. Unfortunately, the only place I could find it is Hobby Link Japan in one shot on eBay. And who knows how long it'll take them to ship the damn thing to me. So I'll keep you posted with what it looks like. I'm back on track with this project. Since I don't have Mr. Metalizer, I'm doing it all dry brush by hand, giving highlights to certain areas and trying to make the metal look more convincing than it actually is. This might be a bit much for some, not exactly necessary, and it could be tacky to others. But for me, it definitely gives the metal a little something that I feel is definitely lacking until I can get my hands on that Mr. Metalizer. I mean, the C1 Metalizer. Oh God, this camera, I swear, it fights you on the autofocus like you would not believe, and it is a pain in my scrotum. Now, the big drawback of this kit is the fact that it doesn't come with Waterslide decals. I think it's a huge misstep, but it is what it is. I did look to see if I could find some Chinese Waterslide decals made for the Origin Gundam, but there weren't any that I could find on eBay. The only option I really had open to me was to use Waterslide decals for like the Verka version of the Gundam, or the Gundam version 2.0, or Master Grade Gundam version 3.0. But I felt like I wanted to use the Origin decals. Well, I wanted to match the Origin design. So I just gave up and went with what came with it. And I figured most people probably wouldn't be privy to that information. And with that in mind, I decided to use the stickers that came with it. They suck, honestly. They blow. Like, they're only good on the white parts of the armor. Any other color like blue or red, and they just stick out so blaringly, it's horrendous, to be honest. The other drawback is they're not easy to work with. So you really need to pay attention to what you are doing and make sure that you are at least 70% sure that this is where you want the sticker to go. Because once it's down, it's a real pain in the ass to get back up, and it's not worth damaging your paint job to get it off to replace it. On top of that, these stickers do need some trimming. I should have trimmed them earlier, but I did not until I was like halfway through it, and it was kind of like that eureka moment, like, let's cut these suckers down because it looks like a hot mess. Usually I use a razor blade, tweezers, and a rubber applicator for my silicone rubber masking fluid to put them down. Hopefully you have at least 2 of these things. As always, be careful with the razor blade. You already know they're sharp. You don't need me holding your hand for this information. This is embarrassing. I totally forgot to record the panel lining or the panel line wash. I use a mixture of fine point Gundam marker pens and, of course, you know, a normal wash where you just use a little bit of a brush and drip on the stuff. As certain areas I want more definition than the panel line wash gives me, so I use the fine point pens. But I probably did forget. Most likely I was transferring the video files over to the computer. While doing this project, the 64 gigabyte memory card I had on hand wasn't enough space because I totally didn't realize how big a job this is, how many hours you can sink into just small portions of it. So I had to buy a 128 gigabyte memory card, and I would experience problems where if I recorded too much, then I ran into the other issue of the card just not wanting to record when it got too hot. So I missed out on the panel lining, and I also didn't show the clear coat I use for metals. I use an Alcalad, I believe Alcalad Aqua Gloss is what I use for the metals, and instead of like the Mr. Color clear coats, because I learned while doing this, because I forgot one metal piece of the backpack, like a complete buffoon, and while I was flat coating these pieces, the flat just killed the chrome silver on one of the parts. Like, it just destroyed it. It looked atrocious. It was such a negative reaction between these two colors. It was quite sad, really. So I was very displeased with that outcome. But live, learn. As I've always said, my painting Gunpla has been nothing but learning experiences. And I felt the best way to learn was to paint Gunpla instead of sitting around and doing all of these tests on little spoons and making sure that I like certain things. That didn't seem very fun to me, rather than just getting in there and applying what I thought would be cool and seeing what the results would be. As I've said before many times, this is just a hobby for me. It's something to escape reality, to deal with depression, in all honesty, no joke. And yeah, that's all it is to me. It's my little something. Where video games used to be, now Gunpla has taken over. Because all the games I used to be hyped for, as soon as they come out, they're just bad. And it's really disheartening. But when I complete a Gunpla, I get the same sort of accomplishment I feel like when I work on my motorcycle and I put in, like, let's say smog block off plates at the time. Or if I change out my wheels on my own and do the tires and stuff. There's a certain level of things that just get to you. Flashing the ECU. I didn't do the brake lines myself. I'm going to take that to a shop. I don't want to screw that up. You screw up your brake lines on a motorcycle, forget it, you're dead with the way I ride. So a little too much about me. Let's just keep moving on. At this point, I tried to take some cinematic shots of the Gundam, like in a sort of pose. It didn't go well, as you could tell. My cinematography is atrocious. I could feel Ron Howard puking in his hat right now if he saw what I was doing. But overall, I wanted to give you a vibe, a look, a taste of what it looks like on display. And after all the time and effort I put into it, even though it's not my best work, it's a mixture. It's like on one level, this is one of my best paint jobs. It's also one of my worst because I made some mistakes that I shouldn't have made, and it really ruined the overall look of the mobile suit, in my personal opinion. So it's a weird duality. I still have great pride for it. I'm still very pleased with how it came out, and I'm happy with it. I think it's nice to look at, and that was my overall goal. I may have missed some spots, but this was a speed build. Believe it or not, I tried to build this as quickly as possible because, you know, having a real life and then trying to balance YouTube and then trying to film and paint a Gunpla at the same time is not fun. It kind of ruins the experience because whereas I normally just paint and enjoy it, I have to sit there and think, uh-oh, this isn't in cameras, this isn't inside the camera's view, this isn't in focus. Now I gotta stop and do this again. The battery died. The memory card's full. Gotta go transfer this and that. And I found myself returning back to this kit a couple times, even when I felt it was done, believe it or not. I took some time to take some metal detail parts. You can find them usually from USA Gundam store. Really, I should have those guys give me my own 10% discount code with all the time I spent on their website and as much promotion as I've done for free. Hold on, is Newegg giving me something cool or no? Newegg's like, here's a 50% off coupon on what? Oh, why you lying to me, bitch? Why you playing with me like that? That ain't cool. Anyway, I have a couple of these detail parts. I use them on rockets and so on and so forth. Normally I save them for my own personal projects, but I felt maybe I should give the Gundam just a little bit more pizzazz, considering I did rush the build and I didn't put the same level of time, effort, and attention to detail that I would in a kit I was doing for myself. Considering a kit I do for myself would take me weeks. I think New Gundam almost took a month to finish. These things are great if you want to give your mobile suits a little bit more kick, a little bit more personality, because sometimes there are glaring holes or something that you don't like. Or you could take a drill bit and drill in your own hole area and then add the detail parts for a little extra something, since they're real metal or a little bit of aluminum. Who the hell knows what they're made out of, but they're really cool looking, and I think it really sets off a mobile suit if used correctly. So that's what I'm doing with the feet. It's not terribly interesting, to be honest. I also took the time to add them to my rockets, which you will note that the gold tint is a little off. I'm still trying to figure out what I was doing there. I thought like gold would really take to the chrome or the black, but it didn't. So I'm gonna start doing a chrome tint with a gold clear coat over it to get the colors that I'm looking for later on in another kit that requires gold or something. But here's some detail parts on the rockets. Just one set of rockets though, because I was running out of detail parts and I really don't feel like spending $7 to $10 for more of them. They might not even be in stock. These little suckers are hard to get a hold of. You've no idea. Especially ones you really want. And we now have the finished piece. To show a contrast, it's the first mobile suit that I've ever painted inside of my computer case. It's the same model that I painted just now. Simply because the Origin Gundam isn't that intricate of a master grade, so it wouldn't take me too long to build, which was the overall goal. If I was looking to build something to take forever, it would be a Sasabe. But as I've stated a couple times in this video, this has to be my best paint job to date. Despite the fact that I made many mistakes and my camera work is crap, don't worry, I'll get one of those specialized camera stands that you see those guys running around with to make things not look like garbage. A cheap one, like $50. The special ones that are recommended by all the big YouTubers are like $500 for like this piece of metal to wiggle it around. Fuck that, dude. I'm not made of money. I'm made of tears and desperation. As I stated before, chrome and matte do not mix. Never mix them. Spastix Chrome is not friendly to Mr. Color Clear Coat or GX Clear. Remember that. But it does work well with Alcalad Aqua Clear Coat, so use that. And here are the Gundams side by side. You know what? I don't even need to give any play-by-play there. And unfortunately, that's kind of the end of the video. Maybe I'll post up some pictures I took because even after I finished this, I thought to myself about the base that came with it. And I said, Gundam, the base is ugly. It's this ugly color. It has to be painted. It needs to pop. You know, if this is going to be like a centerpiece, then every part of it has to just have a vibe and a life to it. Make it happen, dude. So I stopped working on an Ultra Scrub Lord video and sat for maybe 2 hours and started painting the metal base. It's not really metal, it's plastic, but I painted it to look metal. Can't say that I knew what I was doing, and I didn't look at any reference photos or watch any videos on what to do. I just sort of had this feeling of what I think I should do, and I went and did it. Ironically enough, it came out pretty well for a first attempt with no references or ideas what I was doing. It's just kind of like following the higher power of Gunpla painting. And that's kind of how I approach everything in life. I just sort of let whatever I'm doing take me. It isn't really me, it's something else, you know, like some greater connection to the universe. And, you know, it's a Native American thing, you know, being one with everything around you. That's how I draw all of my inspiration in life. I just go with the flow. Oh my God, I forgot the most important part. So sorry. For those of you that actually made it this far, so like one dude, thank you for getting this far. And also, I want to announce that this model kit is being given away. The winner has already been chosen, and it's Gareth. I believe I'm saying that correctly. Random name generator. This was only open to Patreons. It was kind of a slight surprise, because I felt if anybody, or if any people deserved a shot at something really sickly awesome, you know, it may as well be the people who pushed me to create a Patreon and those who decided to donate to it because they wanted to. And it's not like I have a great Patreon. I don't have any weird, awesome tiers like, you know, Young Yi, where you can like send him text messages or something, you know. I'm just like, I'm here, and thank you very much for being here. Thank everybody, the subscribers as well. And since the subscribers won the last one, the keyboard, I figured Gunpla goes to the Patreons. And nothing is more personal than something that actually comes from the person, I should say. Something created by the person, something painted. I wanted this to be real, you know? Because honestly, anybody could pull, you know, here we're giving away a computer. It's full of a bunch of parts given us by companies. It cost us nothing. We just put it together. Here you go. Or the person running the YouTube page just sitting back for days and creating something with a lot of heart and soul. This is the first kit I've done without Chuchi. So it's a very special kit to me because I spent a lot of my time painting this, you know, and doing it in the absence of her being and just, you know, escaping the reality I was living in. And it was a great escape. So I put a lot of effort into it, even though I tried to build as quickly as possible and I didn't spend as much time as I would normally. I still put a lot into this. And I hope Gareth enjoys it. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for everything. Without you guys, I'm nothing. without everybody here, without every subscriber, Twitch follower, Twitter, etc., I wouldn't be here. You know, without that dog, I probably wouldn't have been here as long as I was. Between Chuchi and YouTube, they were the only things that gave my life any sort of meaning when I've lost faith in everything. And at this point, it's getting too personal and too real, so I should get the hell out of here. Rate, comment, subscribe, only so choose to, if not, to hell fit. And I can't ask anyone to give more of a shit than me in the age of apathy.